from the book of Ezekiel. There are these powers, world powers known as Gog and Magog.
The legend of Gog and Magog, the great giants of the North Pole, has been told throughout history with plenty of evidence backing their existence. Even prophecies and revelations are intertwined with this tale, but their story has never been clearer than it was written in the ancient Book of the Bee and the Book of Urantia. With stories about these giants, along with mighty kings and the end of the world, these books warn about the destruction that will befall the earth in the end times. Join us as we explore the legend of the giants of the North Pole and uncover the chilling revelation about the end of time. The giants of the North Pole. Throughout the ages, there have been contemplations as to whether Gog and Magog represent a place or a person. During medieval times, maps weren't just about geography. They were portals to fantastical realms. In these maps, one could find incredible beings like Gog and Magog ruling the northern lands, while bizarre creatures with oversized features like giants roamed the southern borders. Alongside these legends, imaginary islands and mystical places were shown on the maps, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. But for the people who crafted and studied these maps, every detail held significance. Even though many of these places were purely imaginary, they were regarded as genuine by those who mapped them. It's a testament to the lasting influence of maps on our perceptions and imaginations. During the period of the Roman Empire, Asia Minor, which is now known as Turkey, wasn't as unfamiliar as it once was, but the old names stuck around. The shift from Gog of Magog to Gog and Magog likely happened during the Bible's translation into Greek. It seems the translators mistook one for a person and the other for a place. Alexander the Great was one prominent figure that was linked to Gog and Magog. He was explained to be someone who tried to keep it from conquering civilized lands. It was perceived that he built a mighty wall in the Caucasus region to block their path. Legends call the mountain, where the gates of Alexander were located, the breasts of the world, but their true identity remains a mystery. Some theories claim that the Caspian Gates of Dormant, or even the Great Wall of China, are likely fictional. Interestingly, the Quran also mentions a wall erected to keep Gog and Magog away. The builder of this wall, known as Dul-Qarnayn, or the Two-Horned One, is sometimes linked to Alexander, although this connection is uncertain. The Great Wall of Alexander signifies human strength and determination against the threat of this complicated concept, which seemed to be scary giants in ancient stories. These giants were like monsters, scaring people who lived near the big Caspian steppe. People don't know where the giants came from, but they made a big impact on the world during that period. Alexander the Great, a famous leader, fought against them while he was trying to take over new lands. His soldiers had to fight these huge creatures on the tricky mountain paths of the Caucasus. Even though they lost a lot of soldiers, they won in the end. To keep his people safe, he built a huge wall to stop the giants from coming into their lands. This wall went from the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea and had big towers with soldiers watching out for danger. Behind this strong wall, towns and villages were safe from the scary giants. Building this wall was a big deal, and it made life better for everyone living there. Places that used to be scared of giant attacks could now relax and grow. Even though the giants seem to be just stories, the big wall still stands, reminding us of how brave people can be when they work together. Belief in the fast-approaching end of this world and the Last Judgment, a core component of pre-modern European religion and culture. This belief greatly influenced the creation of medieval world maps, Mappa Mundi, and early printed maps. Like many abstract ideas, medieval and early modern Christians gave this belief tangible form in various ways. One notable expression of this apocalyptic concern was the legend of Gog and Magog, mythical destroyers. This legend originated from a misinterpretation in the New Testament, where Gog from the land of Magog was distorted into Gog and Magog. The concept spread beyond religious circles through popular stories, particularly those within the Alexander cycle. These maps, known as Mappa Mundi, did more than just depict physical geography and mythical ethnic groups. They also conveyed the narrative of salvation history and the relationship between past, present, and future through representations of apocalyptic figures, including the ominous concept. In the 15th century, in Bruges, Belgium, a book called Jean Vauquelin's Book of Alexander depicted Alexander the Great's forces walling off a group of people known as Gog and Magog. Around 700 CE, this story was translated into Latin and spread widely throughout Western Europe, becoming a common theme in Christian beliefs about the end of the world. In this version, the people that Alexander trapped were identified as Gog and Magog, who are mentioned as destroyers in the Bible's books of Ezekiel and Revelation. According to these teachings, Gog and Magog would eventually break free from their imprisonment and bring destruction to Christendom. The text also predicted that the Antichrist would gather the Jews in Jerusalem, where they would mistakenly serve him as their Messiah. This negative portrayal of Jews originated from ancient prophecies and contributed to the growth of anti-Semitism alongside apocalyptic beliefs about Gog and Magog. The famous Historia de Preliis Magni Alexandri originally had the title Nativitas et Victoria Alexandri Magni. It was a Latin translation from the 10th century of the Greek Alexander romance by Pseudo-Callisthenes. This Latin version became very popular, as did many translations into different languages. It was printed early on as Historia de Preliis Alexandri Magni. Later versions from the 11th and 12th centuries described Alexander's supposed containment of Gog and Magog to protect the world from their savage ways. This story was incredibly popular throughout the Middle Ages and into the early modern period, appearing in numerous Latin and vernacular versions. Even after the Reformation, these stories continue to circulate widely and influence various medieval writings and interpretations. The depiction of Gog and Magog on early world maps is particularly interesting from a historical standpoint. Despite doubts about their existence in cultural and intellectual circles, mapmakers continued to include Gog and Magog on maps well into the late 16th and 17th centuries. This persistence begs further exploration and a deeper understanding of the theme's history. Traditional cartographers drew inspiration from various sources, including literary texts, interpretations of religious scriptures, and other cultural contexts. One recurring theme in their maps was the depiction of the legendary peoples known as Gog and Magog. This tradition dates back to ancient times, suggesting that even before the Western world had a defined identity, the story of Gog and Magog was part of its rich tapestry of myths and legends. Over time, as skepticism and critical thinking emerged, this tradition was still cherished but began to be questioned. By the 12th century, Western Christians commonly believed several things about the concept. They were seen as synonymous with the 10 lost tribes of Israel, believed to have been trapped behind a wall by Alexander the Great until the end of time, and thought to break free during the reign of the Antichrist to wreak havoc on the world. This belief influenced map-making, with some maps depicting imaginary enclosed Jews alongside Gog and Magog. Traditional views, particularly those rooted in biblical or quasi-biblical sources, played a significant role in shaping the worldview of the Middle Ages and the early modern period. In ancient and medieval world maps, the enigmatic concept were often depicted in the far northeastern part of Asia as legendary figures associated with apocalyptic destruction. Earlier maps referred to them by these names, while later maps, particularly those aimed at a wider readership, mentioned them as the 10 tribes, or the Red Jews. From around 1200 onwards, maps commonly used terms like Jude clause or inclusi, reflecting a shift towards social realities and conflicts. Regardless of the terminology used, Gog and Magog were consistently placed in the far north or east of the maps. Often depicted as being separated from the rest of the world, by natural barriers like mountains or walls. Arabian maps also portrayed them, referring to them as Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. The influence of these Arabic maps on Western cartography is uncertain, but Al-Idrisi's famous map from 1154, commissioned by Roger of Sicily, depicted Gog and Magog in northern China, behind a great wall with a tower and a door. The Munich map, for instance, illustrates the Giants' Islands as circular protrusions on a rectangular island in the Northern Ocean, opposite the region of the Amazons. This depiction is based on an interpretation of the Apocalypse of Pseudo-Methodius, which described the Giants' islands as resembling breasts. The text mentions two mountains suspended from the sky, which Alexander the Great supposedly obtained through prayer to enclose Gog and Magog. This interpretation influenced the graphical representation of the concept on maps, particularly their distinctive shape, mentioned as Ubera Aquilonis in the Apocalypse of the Pseudo-Methodius. In a text called Sibyllinische Texte und Forschungen, the islands where Gog and Magog are locked away are described as Ubera Aquilonis, or Mato Dobora in Greek, meaning breasts of the north. In the transmission of this information, an illustrator depicted these breasts of the north as islands shaped like breasts in the ocean. A similar association can be seen on the Ebstorf map, where two islands are labeled Ubera and Aquilonis. This map, like many others of its time, used a combination of drawings and written labels to help people understand the physical layout of the world by providing visual representations alongside written descriptions. This enigmatic concept, which is also known as Ya'juj and Ma'juj in Arabic, are mentioned in both the Bible and the Quran, appearing as names for individuals, tribes, or lands. In the Book of Ezekiel, Gog is depicted as an individual, while Magog represents his land. However, by the time of the New Testament's revelation, Jewish tradition had modified Ezekiel's Gog from Magog into Gog and Magog. According to Jewish eschatology, the Gog prophecy is anticipated to be fulfilled during the end of days, signifying a significant period, but not necessarily the end of the world. In this view, they are seen as adversaries to be defeated by the Messiah, marking the onset of the Messianic era. However, within certain Christian interpretations, particularly in the Book of Revelation, they symbolize nations rather than individuals, serving as allies of Satan against God during the culmination of the millennium. During the Roman era, a legend emerged associating them with the gates of Alexander, believed to have been erected by Alexander the Great to repel this tribe. Early Christian writers portrayed them as apocalyptic adversaries, while throughout the Middle Ages, they were identified with various nomadic groups or even the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The legend was also incorporated into the Alexander romances, depicting them as kings of the unclean nations obstructed by Alexander's wall. References to their engagement in cannibalism appear in these romances and related literature. Additionally, they were depicted on medieval cosmological maps, sometimes alongside Alexander's fortification. This conflation of the concept with the legend of Alexander and the Iron Gates spread throughout the Near East during the early Christian and Islamic eras. In the Quran, they are described as primitive and immoral tribes separated by Dhu al-Qarnayn, a righteous ruler and conqueror. Some contemporary Muslim scholars even associate the Vikings with the emergence of Gog and Magog. The origin of these names remains uncertain, with various theories proposed. In Genesis, Magog is described as a son of Japheth, grandson of Noah, but there is no mention of Gog. Efforts to identify Gog with historical figures like Gyges, king of Lydia, have been made, but many scholars remain skeptical. The form Gog and Magog likely emerged as shorthand for Gog and of the land of Magog, with references found in both the Hebrew Bible and the Septuagint. To be able to fully understand the legend of Gog and Magog, one would have to trace the stories back to the beginning. The historical timeline of the legend. The legend of Gog and Magog has to do with Alexander and not with Arthur, as widely perceived. A detailed timeline drawn from the Book of the Bee outlined the names of the kings who have ruled the world from the period of the Great Flood to now. Some names of the Median kings who ruled in Babylon are Darius, the son of Vashtasp, who reigned for 24 years, Xerxes, his son, who ruled for 20 years, and Artaxerxes, who ruled for 41 years, alongside some Egyptian kings such as Alexander, the son of Philip, who ruled for 12 years, Ptolemy, the son of Lagos, who ruled for 40 years, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, who reigned for 38 years. Ptolemy Philadelphus, in his third year, asked the Jews who were in Egypt, whom he took captive, and some other 70 old men to translate the scriptures to Greek from Hebrew for him, so he would be able to understand them properly. He agreed with them that, in return for the translation, he'd set them free, they'd no longer be captives, and he'd also give them back the vessel of their temple. The book goes through the history of other Ptolemies, up until Ptolemy Alexander, and then speaks on details of the reign of the kings of Persia. The important timeline started from Shabor to the 15th year of Hormuz, in which he destroyed Dara, is 306 years, and the total years from Adam to the 15th year of Khosrau the Conqueror, which is the 916th year of the Greeks, are 5,861 years. From the period of Adam, the first man, to the crucifixion of Jesus, it took 5,280 years. The period of the Jews from the time they went out of Egypt until Jerusalem was conquered by Titus was 1,601 years. From the time of Abraham to this present year is 2,031 years. Going deep into the timeline from Adam to the flood, it was 2,262 years. And from the flood to Abraham, it was 1,015 years. From Abraham to the exodus of the people from Egypt, it took 430 years. From the exodus of the people by their leaders, Moses and Solomon, to the building of the first temple, it took 400 years. From the time of Solomon to the period of the first captivity of the Jews by Nebuchadnezzar, it was 495 years. From the captivity to the prophecy of Daniel, it was 180 years. From the prophecy to the birth of Jesus, it was 483 years. The sum of all the years is about 5,345 years old. From the time of Alexander to Jesus, it was 303 years, and from Jesus to Constantine, it was 341 years. The kingdom of Persia had its beginning in the 341 years of Alexander the Macedonian. So from the creation of Adam to the time of Alexander, there were about 5,180 years in total. And through all this time, the echoes of the prophecy still linger, causing terror and anxiety in the world. The terrifying prophecy about the end time. In chapter 53 of the Book of the Bee, there's a discussion about the end times and how power will shift between kingdoms. The prophecy predicts the downfall of the Persian Empire and the rise of the descendants of Ishmael from the wilderness of Yathrib. These descendants will gather at Gibeah of Ramah and overthrow the rulers of the Greek kingdom who had previously destroyed the Hebrew and Persian empires. The prophecy also warns of severe punishment for Christians due to their sinful behavior, such as drunkenness, sexual immorality, and disregard for moral laws. As a result, they'll face the rule of barbarians, leading to suffering, enslavement of their children, and heavy taxation. The tyrants will be merciless, oppressing the vulnerable and ignoring justice. The prophecy paints a picture of widespread tribulation, with the elderly suffering from hunger, thirst, and torture. In these trying times, people will commit serious immoral acts without remorse. They'll snatch babies from their mothers and sell them off, showing no compassion even to the weakest among them, who may be disposed of cruelly. Their disregard for immorality will grow and eventually reach sacred places, where they'll desecrate churches and harm priests, indulging in immoral behavior. They'll even defile holy garments by using them for their vanity, showing no respect for religious symbols, bringing animals into places of worship, thereby making them treat sacred spaces with contempt. Amid all this darkness, those who hold strong beliefs will feel so much pain, while others will abandon their faith under pressure due to the happenings at that time. Many will turn against Christ, spreading slander and facing persecution. Even the clergy will most likely lose their dignity, blending in with the common people. Due to the success of certain groups in carrying out their inhumane acts, suffering will escalate, leading to famine and neglect of the dead. Justice will become scarce and will be replaced with exploitation and oppression. Families will reluctantly surrender their children to foreign rulers, facing constant harassment from those in power. In times of oppression, women will turn to men for protection, willing to fend for themselves and see if they can find refuge under their care. Meanwhile, oppressive rulers will enjoy and grow in their luxuries, boasting about their conquests over nations and how they exploit people. But their joy will be short-lived, as the Greek king will bring about a fierce attack, causing them severe pain that will be similar to the pain of childbirth. The king will supposedly emerge from the Cushite Sea and bring devastation to their lands, enslaving their families. Fear will grip all those around them as they endure even harsher treatment under the Greek king's rule. Hunger, thirst, and anxiety will plague them as they become slaves to their former subjects. Yet, amidst the chaos, the earth will find peace as survivors return home, rebuilding their lives. Countries like Egypt, Arabia, and Hebron are more likely to suffer devastation based on the prophecy, but ultimately, a profound peace will blanket the earth, signaling the end of an era. In a future where peace reigns supreme, life on earth will be marked by restored churches, bustling cities, and a carefree existence for priests who are free from taxation and can enjoy life's simple pleasures. People will live without fear or hardship, indulging in the joys of food, drink, marriage, and family. The world will be filled with so much peace that the memories of past conflicts fade into distant memories, and humanity will thrive in harmony with nature. In a time of peace, there's a hidden, dark secret from a troubled past. Ages ago, during King Alexander's rule, a brutal tribe called the Jaffa descendants, known for their savagery and disregard for life, were locked behind a strong gate in the north. Alexander, horrified by their cruelty and fearing their harm to civilization, prayed for divine help to contain them, imprisoning the giants of the north. With unwavering determination, Alexander pleaded for assistance to seal off this dangerous tribe. The heavens responded, guiding him to build a mighty gate, guarded by tall mountains, to imprison the Jaffa descendants and their descendants. This gate, made of unyielding brass and blessed with sacred oil, stood as a defense against the chaos they represented. Behind this gate were 22 kingdoms, each with its own dark history, bound by his decree and divine will. Among them, Gog and Magog, symbols of ancient threats to existence, remained dormant for centuries, contained by the divine barrier. While the world enjoys peace, unaware of the danger beyond the northern gate, darkness stirs once more. Within their prison, Gog and Magog await their chance for freedom, waiting for the right time to unleash chaos upon the world. When the gate finally opens and the ancient wards break, chaos will reign again as these unleashed nations wreak havoc upon the earth. Who will bring this chaos to earth? The giants of the north and the end of the world. The giants at the North Pole hold a lot of significance for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Jewish scripture only briefly mentions Gog and Magog in Ezekiel, but other texts offer more interpretations. The Talmud, a Jewish legal text, talks about the War of Gog and Magog, seen as the ultimate battle during the Messianic era. However, some Jewish scholars, like Maimonides, advise against dwelling too much on the specifics of the Messianic age. Maimonides, in Mishneh Torah, Kings and Wars, cautions against trying to predict the exact events of the Messianic era. He says these matters are uncertain and not crucial to one's faith. Instead, he emphasizes focusing on being a good person and following Jewish laws. This, he believes, is the best preparation for the arrival of the Messiah and for helping to bring about the Messianic age through tikkun olam, or repairing the world. In addition to their mention in Ezekiel from the Hebrew Bible, Gog and Magog are also referenced in the Book of Revelation in the Christian New Testament, which describes the names as part of an apocalyptic scenario. According to the text, Satan will be released from his prison and will deceive the nations across the earth, gathering them for battle. This concept, portrayed as numerous as the grains of sand on the seashore, march across the earth and surround the camp of God's people and the beloved city. However, divine intervention occurs as fire descends from heaven, consuming them. Subsequently, Satan, the deceiver, is cast into the lake of burning sulfur, along with the beast and the false prophet, where they face eternal torment. This depiction aligns closely with the interpretation found in Jewish tradition, where the concept symbolizes a significant conflict anticipated to coincide with the onset of the Messianic age. Similarly, Islamic tradition also incorporates the narrative of Gog and Magog, although with variations such as the absence of Satan's imprisonment and a focus on the armies of Gog and Magog. The prophecy concerning Gog is anticipated to unfold during the period known as the end of days, although it doesn't necessarily signify the end of the world itself. In Jewish eschatology, Gog and Magog are perceived as adversaries destined to be vanquished by the Messiah, heralding the onset of the Messianic era. Conversely, within certain Christian perspectives, the portrayal is more ominously apocalyptic, depicting Gog and Magog as nations rather than individuals, aligned with Satan against God during the culmination of the millennium as outlined in the Book of Revelation. During the Roman era, a legend emerged regarding concept, attributing the construction of the gates of Alexander to Alexander the Great as a defense mechanism against this tribe. The Jewish historian Josephus, influenced by Roman culture, identified them as the descendants of Magog, a descendant of Japheth as mentioned in Genesis, associating them with the Scythians. Early Christian writers transformed them into apocalyptic adversaries. Throughout the Middle Ages, they were identified interchangeably as the Vikings, Huns, Khazars, Mongols, or other nomadic groups, and occasionally even as the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The legend of Gog and Magog, along with the narrative of the gates, found its way into the Alexander romances. According to one interpretation, Goth and Magothi represent the rulers of the unclean nations, whom Alexander compelled through a mountain pass and prevented from breaching his newly erected wall. These romances and related literature depict Gog and Magog as engaging in acts of cannibalism. They also feature prominently on medieval cosmological maps, or mappae mundi, often depicted alongside Alexander's fortification. The merging of the Gog and Magog legends with the tale of Alexander and the Iron Gates spread throughout the Near East during the early Christian and Islamic periods. In the Quran, they are referred to as Yajuj and Majuj, described as primitive and immoral tribes segregated and barricaded by Du al-Qarnayn, he of the two horns, portrayed as a righteous ruler and conqueror. Some contemporary Muslim scholars and geographers even identified the Vikings as the manifestation of Gog and Magog. Thank you for watching this video. While you are still here, click the video on your screen to see more mind-blowing videos like this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.